Welcome to the First Responders Wealth Network. Our mission is to help all first responders change their mindset towards money and educate how to build long-term wealth through real estate investing. Are you ready?
What's going on, everyone? Hope you're ready to be inspired today. Welcome to the First Responder Wealth Network podcast. I'm Dave Knight. So in this episode, I have another success story for you, driven by the power of real estate investing and all while working full-time. So today I'll be walking you through the learning process that all started with my guest pulling equity out of his primary residence, which led him into buying multiple turnkey rental properties and ultimately graduating to becoming familiar with the BRRRR strategy and finding his niche within that strategy of buying distressed properties in the Hamilton, Ontario market. Now, for those of you outside of Canada, Hamilton is basically approximately an hour west of Toronto. Today, I'll be interviewing Adrian Pannozzo, a retired sergeant with 20 years experience serving Peel Regional Police Service. And we discuss his ability to grow a very respectable portfolio of residential family properties, which ultimately led him to retiring early. How awesome is that? So his journey started about 7 years ago, I think it was. And as mentioned earlier, and like many, he used his home equity line of credit and purchased 3 turnkey rentals, which was a big step for a first-time investor. After multiple years in the Hamilton market, he gives credit to networking, being involved with good contractors, eventually learning about the BRRRR strategy and surrounding himself with good people and good mentors. So I'll be diving into the numbers and different examples of how this can be done in another podcast, so please stay tuned. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at 911wealthnetwork.com. So another topic that we touch on is sometimes a sensitive issue in the policing culture, to say the least, and possibly other first responder communities as well. So if that's the case, I'd love to hear from you and maybe hear about your experiences as well. But basically, Adrian expressed that while on the job, he actually didn't tell many coworkers of his successes he had accomplished in real estate because of and I guess unfortunately I can relate at times, the negative feedback coworkers often present in the workplace. Anytime the topic of maybe money, finances, or simply sharing any accomplishments people have had with multiple income streams outside of the workplace. So I know it's not a topic that's addressed very often, I feel. So I decided to dive into it and get into a little bit more with him. You know, my outlook on the whole thing is, at the end of the day, guys, we all retire. We all have to hang it up sometime. So why not figure out a way to live more comfortably when that time happens to come? Not to mention the possibility of getting hurt outside the workplace. And a perfect example of this is my interview with Cole Hatter. So go check it out. So having said all this, I'm hoping to change the stigma of helping each other financially, because at the end of the day, we're all on the same side and we're all here doing the same job, and we should be encouraging each other and educating each other on how to help elevate and prosper. So are you guys all ready to go? Hope you all enjoy Adrian's story and are inspired by his accomplishments. Oh, one last thing. Sorry, I always forget. Please, if you can go on to any platform that you're listening to me on now, subscribe, rate, and review. Cheers, and hope you guys enjoy the interview. Well, today I'm excited to have Adrian Pannozzo on the show today. He's a former sergeant with Peel. I think 20 years, did you say?
Yeah, I'm in my 20th year, or I left at my 20th year of policing.
Well, I know for the last, I think it was 6 or 7 or 5 or 6 years towards the end of your policing career, you got heavily involved into real estate investing, which is why I have you on the show, clearly. And I'm genuinely excited to bring you on because I want to tell your story. And also, I think it's amazing the size of portfolio that you're able to accumulate while working. I think it's just your story is a true testament to the ability that it is possible to do this type of work on the side. And, you know, before we dive into it, and people that are listening, you know, my goal here isn't to necessarily, I'm not pushing you to grow a portfolio the size of Adrian's. However, I just want to show that it is possible with a little bit of education and knowledge and guidance that, you can get some rental properties going on the side to secure your retirement rather than relying on pension alone. So that's the basis here, Adrian. So first off, why don't you explain your story? Obviously, you're a sergeant at Peel, which is in the GTA for those of you listening in the US as well. It's just outside of Toronto. Basically, he's able to do some real estate on the side and then transition that to retire early and actually go full time with investing in a real estate agent. So go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me on the show as well. I'm always excited to share any information or knowledge I can with obviously any listener, and particularly fellow law enforcement colleagues. Mm-hmm. But long story short, I bought my first rental property just about 7 years ago now. And obviously at that time, I was a police officer, a full-time police officer. And I purchased my first property 7 years ago. And then people always ask, well, how did you get started? How did you buy that property? Where'd you get the money to put down? So my wife and I took out a home equity loan on our principal residence. So that obviously accumulated in value, and there was some capital there, some equity. So we refinanced our home, pulled out some money from that, and secured enough money to purchase our first rental property that we bought. It was a duplex, so one apartment up top, 3-bedroom, and then side door going down to a 2-bedroom basement apartment. From there, we continued. It almost became addictive, and with a bit of luck, things went well. At the time, I was connected with a mortgage broker who really spoke highly about investing in the city of Hamilton. And for those of you who don't know, Hamilton is approximately an hour and 20 minutes, an hour from downtown core of Toronto, city of Toronto, on the west end, going west. So my mortgage broker at the time convinced me, take your money to the city of Hamilton. Hamilton is a city that was rejuvenating, flourishing, really doing well. And the prices of homes in Hamilton were considerably less than prices where I lived in York Region. So we went for a road trip, and we scoped out some properties. And the money would go a lot further out there. So really not knowing, Hamilton at all. I've never been to the city. I didn't know north, south, east, west. I essentially jumped in with both feet and purchased my second rental property out there in the city of Hamilton. Fully renovated, turnkey, triplex, 3 self-contained apartments within this Victorian home. Renovated, all we had to do were find tenants, right, and tenant the building. So it was actually vacant? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Now, where'd you get the money for the second property? Still from my home equity loan. Okay. Yeah. I want to say when we first started, we were probably able to pull out, it's a while ago now, but I think we were able to secure about $180,000 on a line of credit. If I'm not mistaken, we were able to purchase 3 properties, meaning having enough to put on a down payment, 20% down for the first 3 properties we bought. So the first one, like I said, was a duplex here in York Region. And then the next 2 were multifamily homes in the city of Hamilton. Well, all secured by just taking that those funds out of a line of credit home equity loan on our principal residence. So how many years ago was this now, did you say? Started 7 years ago. 7 years ago. Yeah. So what gave you the drive or the idea to pull all that equity out of your home, your principal residence, and put it into rental properties? Were you listening to podcasts, books?
I mean, was it just your mortgage broker that you knew that suggested it and then it got you thinking, or how did that process come about?
I really owed it to a lot of it to my mortgage broker at the time. He kind of looked into our finances and whatnot, and he said, like, you have all this equity in your home, what are you doing with it? He's a mortgage broker / financial advisor, kind of wears two hats. What are you doing with all this equity in your home? And typical police officers, just happy to have a good salary and whatnot, not really thinking deeply about, I have all this equity in my home. So obviously I responded, nothing. What am I doing with it? I'm just happy that I don't have a big mortgage, and I can live nicely and comfortably, and I don't know, what am I supposed to be doing with the money?
Yep.
He kind of put the bug in my ear and said, well, have you ever thought of buying a rental property? Like, you have all this money, it's just sitting there, reinvest it and make money for you, essentially through the power of real estate. So I really owe it to him for making those suggestions, because I didn't have anybody other than him that would educate me or inspire me to use that money for real estate.
That's awesome. I mean, sometimes it just takes one person to put that idea in your head, and then you can start thinking. And I mean, that's exactly what I'm trying to do here. So, so fast forward, you purchased that third property, and then what? At what state were you at? So you're tapped out in your line of credit because you just purchased three more properties. So now you have 4, which is awesome. Obviously, they were all cash flowing. So you obviously did your homework before that, making those purchases. When did you learn about the strategy that you followed through with? Obviously, the BRRRR strategy is what got you to the level that you're at now. But kind of explain to people what happened after that third property that you purchased.
So the first 3 I purchased turnkey. So essentially they were already renovated. Contractor went in. It was this, as they call it, their flip.
Yeah.
He went in, he renovated it, and then he flipped it, put it on the market. And I came along and ended up buying that house. So after 3 being out of capital from my line of credit, I then looked back and said, okay, now I have, ironically, things were going really well in the market and whatnot. And these 3 properties, you look back, they'd all had gone up about $100,000 each.
Wow.
In capital. And again, this now is probably over 2.5 years.
Okay. So it had gone up 100 each over 2.5 years in Hamilton. In Hamilton.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the first one was York Region. The next 2 was Hamilton.
Right. Okay.
But they systematically all went up just through the passive appreciation and what was happening in the market in real estate. So I was able now to go back and start pulling out equity from the rental properties that I purchased, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
I refinanced the rental property to pull that equity out. Obviously, a home equity loan back then, I think I was 3.25% prime plus a half or whatever it was back then. So I think it's like 3% or something like that, 3.25. So some people say, well, why aren't you just trying to pay that rental property off quickly so you don't have a mortgage and you can move on and have better cash flow or have a better return?
And I think that's what most people think is the better route.
Pay the mortgage.
Yeah, no overhead, no mortgage, free hassle. But go ahead. Yeah.
So I can take that equity out and pay the bank 3% on that money, tax-free. And I can take that 3% and I can buy another investment property with it. And I can now, that 3%, I can get over 20% return on a cash flowing new rental property. So it cost me 3 to take it out of the bank, but I'm making 20, 25 points on it by reinvesting it. So I'm still much further ahead. And then guess what happens? This 4th rental property now all of a sudden starts to appreciate in value. And the 5th rental property starts to appreciate in value, and the cycle continues itself.
Yeah.
So with respect to the BRRRR strategy, After being entrenched in Hamilton for a number of years, I began to build up a network of contacts. So, other investors, contractors, different trades and whatnot. And essentially I started, instead of buying turnkey properties, I began to buy distressed properties. People say, well, what's distressed? Distressed property in the terms of the bones to the property are really good, but the inside of the property, cosmetically, for the most part, is horrendous. So, the property hasn't been renovated. It still has the original shag carpets, the original kitchens, the original bathroom tiles, all that jazz. But the structure itself, the bones of the house are good. It's just inside is incredibly dated. And obviously in need of updating, repairs, so on. So we focused on that. Why did we focus on distressed properties? Because we could buy them very, very inexpensive. We could put in a decent amount of money into renovations. But then the goal would be, when we would call the bank back and we would say, Mr. TD Bank, come back now. I finished all the work I needed to do on this house, and please reappraise this house for me. What's the new value of this house? TD Bank would come back and say, okay, your new value is X amount of dollars. You're able to refinance, and essentially you're 20% down, and all the money you spent on your renos, we forced appreciation so much, we're able to get all of that capital back out. So essentially we have a refinance, a new mortgage with zero of our money into the property. And why is that important? Or why is that a positive thing? Because now, for example, I have my 20% back. I have all my rentals back. So for easy math, let's say it's $100,000. Let's say it's probably more. It's probably more closer to $130,000. So now I have my $130,000 back to be able to do it again on another property.
And then the light bulb went off right at that moment, I'm sure.
Right.
You know, you said, holy shit, I can keep doing this. And the power of multiplication and the power
recirculating, reinvesting that capital project after project after project, as opposed to leaving it in there, which is not a bad thing. It just takes longer because that property now has to passively appreciate.
Yep.
And then, a year, 2 years down the road, holy, it's gone up $100,000. I'll take it out, buy another one, or reinvest that money somewhere else. Whereas this one, with our strategy, with the buy, renovate, refinance, we're able to do that in about 5 months.
Right.
So a lot quicker.
The power of the forced appreciation, and then your hold strategy. So you're not selling, you're not flipping. So you don't have to worry about the tax dollars or paying tax on those dollars. And then the power of leverage alone, the banks come in and, they let you, give you that new mortgage or refinance, and
That's right.
you're off to the races again. So,
yeah.
So having explained that, then what can we dive into one of your projects? Do you have some numbers in front of you? Yeah, just off the topic. It doesn't have to be down to the cent. Just give listeners an idea.
Yeah, so we purchased this property on Main Street in Hamilton.
Okay.
Essentially, the area is Main and Sherman Avenue in the downtown core.
Very familiar with that one.
Yeah. We purchased it for $460,000 in a very, very distressed state, very beat up. But again, the bones were good. It's just cosmetically and whatnot, some mechanical issues as well. But which it was approximately 3,000 square feet, 4 units, first level, really big, nice 2-bedroom. Second level was a 3-bedroom. The loft, the top floor is a bachelor, and then the basement is a 2-bedroom unit. So 4 units, 4 self-contained units within the building, purchased at $460,000. We spent $150,000 in renovating this property. Labor, materials, so on and so forth. we refinanced this property 5 months later after renovations were completed. And we refinanced this property for $850,000.
Wow.
So we almost doubled the value of this home in 5 months by renovating it and bringing it back up to a very, very high standard. Like we deck our units out with stainless steel appliances, quartz countertops, porcelain tiles, high-end laminate, pot lights everywhere, so on and so forth. So we really we don't cheap out on them. We get them, I believe you get what you pay for, right?
Yeah, and you're targeting great renters, right? AAA renters.
Young professionals, typically between the ages of 25 and 30.
Right.
They have their full-time job. They've completed university. They're making a good wage, and they're responsible. They appreciate a brand new, trendy, new car smell apartment, right? With all the bells and whistles. And they don't mind to pay, very good market rents. Or I should say most of ours are above market rents, similar to your property,
right.
That they don't mind to pay, but you just have to give them that quality, right?
No, and with those type of tenants, obviously it comes less headache and less effort on the management side.
Right.
So that's good. So then, what's your portfolio at right now? Where are you?
So I think it's important to say and to mention that we also, I also joint venture partnership with a lot of different investors, which has enabled my portfolio within the last 2 years to grow insanely, I would put it at. We partner up with professionals like lawyers, doctors, people who have a lot of capital, who want to invest, don't have the time or the knowledge or the experience to, for example, hit a project out of the park like this one on Main Street where there was an outstanding overall project. So we essentially partner up with these people, and we own the property together, but I'm responsible for the success, and to make everything happen, I'm responsible for dealing with the contractors, picking the property, selecting tenants, selecting the colors, selecting the renovations, selecting the scope of the renovations, essentially from A to Z. And then we hand them, the turnkey at the end of the rainbow sort of thing, with the very fruitful results.
Right.
So based on the power to be able to, and the knowledge to be able to get those results, we've attracted a lot of different investors, and we've been able to grow our portfolio now. I believe we're at 33 houses and about 133, 38, 36 stores.
Nice.
In total.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
Yeah, it's been quite the run so far.
So what do your copper buddies and think about that size portfolio when you tell them that's where you're at now after only a few short years?
Yeah, well, I'd be quite honest. When I was still policing, and I've only been out of the police department now just over a year, so I retired just over a year ago. Being police officers, we know that a lot of cops they don't like to share their business. Most of them are miserable. A lot of cops with 15, 20 years on, they don't have the best attitude in the world. For whatever reasons, they feel they've been cheated. They feel they should have got promoted over the next guy. They feel that the job owes them something, or whatever. Everybody has their reasons. So I didn't really want to brag. So what I'm getting at is, a lot of times, really nobody on the police department knew how entrenched I was with real estate, because I didn't want to create any jealousy. They probably wouldn't believe me if I told them the truth anyway. They'd probably tell me, "Yeah, you're full of shit. There's no way."
Or everything's a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, it's all,
Everyone
it's all
thinks
a pyramid. It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
How can you manage to accumulate that kind of a portfolio, still being a full-time police officer, and taking care of all that stuff? And yada, yada, yada. So
Yep.
long story short, I really kept a lot of it to myself, and I didn't really share a lot of that information. You know, I would tell them if they would ask, you know, oh, how many properties do you own now? And I would say, oh, I'm up to 2 or max 3. Yeah, I have 3 properties. That's it. You know, so, you know, well, you're always on the phone. Why are you always on the phone? Say, oh, you know, things are bad. Tenant problems, and just kind of move on from there. But they had no idea, and I didn't want anybody to know at that time, which is unfortunate that you're not able to feel comfortable to share that information and maybe help them succeed in real estate. But I would just say, 2 or 3 properties.
Well, let's dive into that, because I know we talked off air a little bit about that, and it's kind of unfortunate that it is that way, because you know, for everything that we do, everything we're exposed to, and I've said this before, it's unfortunate, especially in your situation and probably many others. They may have passions of, you know, doing work outside the workplace, but it's almost taboo to even have that conversation, to even talk about it or bring it up. And I don't know why that is.
I don't know.
If it's just culture, or it's just historical, or maybe people just aren't knowledgeable, so they fight it, or people are just so entrenched, like you said, in their own workplace, in their own space, where policing is all they know, or fire is all they know, or paramedic or military, or whatever the case may be for us first responders. Mm-hmm. But for someone like you who's so passionate about it, and for me, obviously I wouldn't have this podcast if I wasn't. You know, you love what you do, you see the opportunity that's there, and you want other people to dive into the opportunity as well, because of all the shit we deal with at work every day. You know, there's no reason why they can't just, if it's just a slice of what we've done or what you've done to better off them and their family, especially long term, to benefit them and help them out on top of their pension, because we all know the pension, I mean, that's an issue right now ongoing with OMERS in Ontario. But why do you think that is?
I think you hit it on the head. I think it's culture. I think it's historical. I think, you know, as police officers, we're ingrained to just, you know, we love the job for the most part. That's all we know. Mm-hmm. Like, don't get me wrong. When it was time for me to leave, I walked away from a great career and been promoted through the ranks. I had the opportunity to work in many different bureaus within the police department. So I had no animosity or, I wasn't one of those disgruntled employees, but just the culture after 20 years, you know, I think more officers than less just have that culture where policing is all we know. I don't believe anything anybody tells me. Mm-hmm. Half of what everybody says is bullshit. I really don't like most people, yada, yada, yada. You know, you really have to, I don't know, it's just negativity, a lot of negativity. And a lot of people have said to me since I've retired from the police department, I'm not as negative. I'm more happy. I'm more cheerful. I'm more wanting to communicate with people and trust people a little bit more. But I mean, after 20 years of consistent policing, I think you hit it on the head. And I quite honestly think it's culture that's ingrained in us. But there is, I'm a firm believer, and I'm proof, there is life outside of policing. And it's life that you can be even that much more successful. I mean, we all make good money as police officers, but I mean, to be able to double that salary in real estate investing is not impossible at all.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And sometimes, you know, you talk about negativity. I mean, we're not exactly exposed to the most positive environments day in and day out, you know.
Right. We're exposed to this shit.
Yeah. And everyone you deal with, you're supposed to be skeptical. You know, you don't believe everything they tell you. So, that's right. You know, it's hard to sometimes shut that off. So I'm hoping, you know, this type of conversation and others I'm going to have with other people in different units or different, you know, frontline positions, that people just start thinking about it, the opportunities that are out there, and not to rely on your pension alone, because all this stuff, it's not that hard. I mean, it's a lot of people do it, and we're not the only ones out there that are doing this. There's the banking system is based on real estate. I mean, it's backed by real estate, I should say. So, I mean, there's a method to the madness, and I like to think that, that has some merit. So it's not, we're not going out and, starting network marketing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
Right.
Either A, do some type of side hustle, and there's nothing wrong with that, or do some real estate. But
Absolutely.
Extra income streams, and it's important, especially this day and age. Everything's getting more expensive. So
Absolutely.
where do you see yourself now in the next 5 years? Now that you've come to the point of you stepped away from policing, and now you're gung ho and you're so successful doing what you're doing right now with Sandy. Where do you guys see yourself now in the next 5 years?
So we're concentrating, Sandy being my partner in real estate, we're concentrating a lot of our efforts on working with investors and finding them, home run deals with income properties, particularly multifamilies, 2-3 units in and around the city of Hamilton. We want to grow that business and help as many people create generational wealth in real estate for them and their families, whether it's police officers, fire department, first responders. I think I can relate to most of them, being on the job for 20 years. So that's one of our primary focuses. We also do we're just going to start doing a lot of coaching and one-on-one coaching with different investors who want to learn. Continue to joint venture partnerships with investors that say, hey, you know what? Kind of nervous. The first one, I want to partner up with you. You kind of show me the ropes, and then after the first one, maybe I'll do another one on my own. So we're doing a lot of, still looking forward to doing a lot of, partnerships.
Nice.
And ultimately, I think I want to scale it to a point where I can, maybe by the time I'm 44 right now, 44 years old right now, maybe by the time I'm 50, I can really, park my butt on a beach somewhere in the Caribbean and sit back and log in every day and kind of check my properties remotely and really just live and enjoy life thanks to real estate.
Nice. And I'm sure your wife has no problems with that 5-year goal of sitting on a beach somewhere.
No, exactly not. So my wife, she's also in policing as well. So she can relate. She can relate just being in that culture as well.
So everyone that's listening, what would your suggestion be for first responders to get exposed to real estate investing, and what type of niches there are? I mean, I know you've focused more on the BRRRR strategy, but I mean, people that have done successful, especially in good areas with single family, duplexes, multifamily, et cetera, or getting involved in syndications and stuff. But, for me, it was a lot of podcasts. So I had podcast had a great effect on me and my education process. What about you? What do you suggest some listeners and how they get educated on real estate investing? What do you think the first step should be for them?
I think they need to, like you said, podcasts are great. Hook up with a professional, whether it be myself, you, for example. Hook up with a professional person and seek advice and direction. Because it's free of charge. Nobody's going to charge you to talk to you. At least I'm not. If you wanted to talk to me, for example, but kind of navigate through that. Hook up with a professional, get some advice. I would start off by telling you, there is no perfect time to get into real estate. A lot of people say we have to time the market. We have to time the market. And I disagree. I think it's time in the market, not timing the market. It's time in the market. And you can't be successful in real estate if you don't get in the market. The market will go up and down. It'll fluctuate. But had you invested within the last 15 years in real estate, you probably more than doubled your money in your properties. So again, time in the market, seek advice and direction from a professional to help you along the way. Again, for the most part, our advice is all free. Our coaching, for the most part, is all free. You don't have to pay for it. And if I could see other first responders like yourself, myself, be as successful as we are with real estate, hey, it's all in the family, right?
No.
So get in the market, buy one. You got to get your feet wet, get off the fence and just do it. Have a professional like myself or Dave on your corner to give you a hand and seek and kind of get you in that right direction. But you got to just get in the market, buy your first one, get your feet wet, get things started. You won't regret it. I'm telling you, you won't regret it. These horror stories about bad tenants and they take forever to get rid of them and all this stuff, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Yeah. Because as cops, we know how to screen people. We know how to do background checks. We can read people really good. So if you take the time and you screen your applications and you screen your potential tenants thoroughly, I mean, they ain't going to rob you blind. And worst case scenario, if you make a bad mistake, it takes you 2 months to get that guy out with the landlord-tenant board. These horror stories that, this guy took 6 months or a year to get him out. Well, the landlord didn't know what he was doing.
Exactly. No, without a doubt, that's the deal breaker right there. You got to do your due diligence, whether it's someone like me or yourself, helping someone along the way or mentoring or coaching. I mean, there's a process for all renters, and without that process, that's how you get into those jackpots.
That's right.
And you hear those stories of 6 months. They obviously they didn't serve their N4s. They didn't serve their proper processes at a timely manner. So, and it's a pain in the ass if you don't know what you're doing. So definitely get some guidance and do your homework before just the first guy knocking on your door who wants to hand you a check. So
we've also managed to, whoever needs it out there, but obviously in the west end of the city, my partner and I have also managed to open up a property management company. So if anybody out there needs property management help or advice or direction, definitely can help you with that as well. We have a full-fledged running, operating property management company that will find your tenants, will take care of your property, so on and so forth. So
nice. Yeah. How can people get a hold of you, Adrian?
Adrian, Adrian at Mackay, Mackay, realtynetwork.com. Or I can be reached on my cell, 416-938-2641. Or shoot me an email to that email address. Love to hook up with you. I think networking in real estate is huge, and there's networking with other investors is, I may know more than you in certain areas. You may know more than me in other areas. So, we were to collaborate and put our ideas together. Just networking with other investors is huge, right?
Yeah.
So don't discount the power of networking for sure.
Totally. And like you said, good people are willing to help you and want to see you succeed, not just get your dollar. So,
exactly.
So that's why I enjoy having people like you on, because people have, good intentions, and I'm trying to create a network, which is why it's the Wealth Network. I want to create wealth for people in first responder community. And within this network, people can collaborate and reach out and whatnot. So I'll put your information on the show notes. And hopefully people can reach out to you that way.
Cool.
All right, man. I think that's pretty much it. I value your time and appreciate your input here. And hopefully we can get people's mind to start thinking and changing their mindset on money and real estate investing. So thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll chat soon.
All right, brother.
Okay. See ya. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review on iTunes. Also, check out our website at 911wealthnetwork.com or contact Dave directly at 911wealthnetwork.com. Stay safe out there.